This strange tale of history was written by my brother-in-law Gerald Sawyer and was printed in the London Evening News on October the 20th, 1955. Gerald was very interested in Napoleon's career, and I happened to come across this faded, tattered newspaper article when clearing up some family papers. This is the story that Gerald researched about Napoleon's firstborn son, who was illegitimate but was given the title Count Leon. On telling this tale, I hope you don't mind these pictures I took on the island of Elba as background to this strange talk, and show the house that Napoleon lived in Elba. I always thought he was living in exile, but he certainly lived in luxury. I was on a Fred Olsen cruise in 2010 and Elba was on its itinerary, so I thought I would get some good opportunities to get some background shots of Napoleon and the house that he lived in. This was his abode in exile, which he used to hold court, plus making his plans to return to France and beat his old enemy. As you see, it's quite a climb up from the harbour. Leon was born in 1806, his mother being Louise de la Palange, a maid of honour to Her Imperial Highness Caroline Bonaparte, third sister of Napoleon. The first 8 years of his life was happy enough, pampered and petted. He could look forward to a life of ease and luxury. Fate, however, was to disturb the tranquillity of his existence. For on June the 18th, 1815 came the disaster of Waterloo, and with it the end of his father's dream of world conquest. As you can see, Napoleon was living in luxury. To continue with our story, we change location and visit London. If you are familiar with North or Northwest London and look over the top of the old gasworks, for about 2 miles behind there you will come to the area of Chalk Farm, Camden Town and Mornington Crescent. The statue in the middle of the road is of Richard Corbden, which has some slight connection to this story. Richard Corbden was the man who got the Corn Laws repealed. And as you see from the base of the statue, you will see 2 clues. Number 1, Napoleon III gave money to erect this statue. Clue number 2 is the vestry of St Pancras. The vestry of St Pancras stretched far and wide, right out to Highgate, and here's an example of some of the parish stones marking the boundary. Count Leon was not a very likeable fellow. He could lose his temper at just a small matter, but one thing he was good at was shooting, and he was handy with a sabre. And he was known to call people out cheating at cards or dice, and they would exchange cards and duel the next morning. Leon never missed, and his reputation as a duellist was well known. It was recorded in March 1832 during a game of cards with a certain Captain Hesse, an illegitimate son of the Duke of York, that the Count lost £2,000 to his fellow player. Annoyed at his misfortune, he accused the grandson of George III of cheating. Cards were exchanged, seconds appointed, and pistols primed. The contestants met the following morning. The gallant captain, himself a noted duellist, must have been a little bit out of practice, for his opponent survived him by 49 years. The reason Count Leon was living in England was political refuge, as the Napoleon family in France fell in and out of favour over several years. His cousin Louis, the son of Napoleon II, also took refuge in England and lived at Carlton House in London. Count Leon called on him and created a terrible row in which he called his cousin Louis out, and a duel was arranged on Wimbledon Common the next morning. But just in the nick of time, the Bow Street runners stopped the duel. This could have changed history because Louis became Napoleon III. Count Leon returned to France when the Napoleonic family were in favour again, but lost all his money and was a disgrace. He returned to England, to Chalk Farm area, and put himself on the parish, that is, St Pancras Vestry, in other words, the workhouse. And in the year 1881, worn out, he returned to France and died at the age of 75. To finish off the story, we go back to Corbin's statue. It was Corbin who negotiated a trade pact with the French government. That's why Napoleon III was very grateful and gave a generous donation for his statue.